My Lords, I too wish to pay tribute to Baroness Boothroyd. Because of the proximity of our offices, Baroness Boothroyd and I often used to bump into each other in the lift. And one day I complimented her on one of her fabulous outfits. She was always beautifully turned out. And she said, in that unmistakable voice, she said, give it money and go big. And I've always thought that I will forever hold that as my phrase. Give it brass, go big. Oh, that's actually what she said. Give it brass, go big. My Lords, the theme of today's International Women's Day is Embrace for Equity. It's a very, very good phrase, as the Liberal Baroness has just said, because it carries within it the implication that we are, as women, diverse, very diverse. Women have different life experiences, we have different economic circumstances, we have all sorts of differences between us, and yet we have common aspirations for safety, health, autonomy and prosperity. And it is important, I think, to bear that in mind as we have this debate, because this debate takes place against the background of a campaign which is originated and orchestrated by Christian nationalists in the United States, Europe and across Russia, which is very definitely about curbing the aspirations and autonomy of all women. In the United States and places like Poland and Hungary, the focus is on anti-abortion activities. In Africa, the focus of it is against equality and LGBT rights. And in the US and in the UK, the key focus of this campaign is about anti-gender. The overall, and we're beginning as we go through to see a greater emphasis on unpicking this campaign and understanding the motivations behind it. The Council of Europe, for example, in 2023 produced a thematic report on legal gender recognition in Europe, which began to show what this campaign is all about, because ultimately what it is about the rolling back of human rights and about the destruction of human rights legislation and the organisations which are there to protect and promote it. And that is a key concern to all women, because human rights lies at the basis of our equality and equity. In the UK, we know that there is a daily campaign against trans women. We see it day after day in our media. It's a campaign that seeks to pit women against women. It portrays trans women as a significant and systemic threat to other women. I have to say, after 6 years, it's a campaign that has yet to provide evidence of that, and it is yet to win significant approval. That's not to say that some politicians have not been taken in by this and have been ever ready to use this to their political advantage. I have to say today, some of us will always reject playing with human rights, because if you play with the human rights of some people, you play with the human rights of all. And if you jeopardise the rights of some women, you jeopardise the rights of all. I hope that politicians in this country will look again at some of aspects of this campaign and will desist in the demonisation of a very small minority of people in this country. They are, at the moment, under attack and very frightened. And today, on International Women's Day, it's important to give them some hope and some solidarity. I want to pick up on one particular point. It is inescapable that the cuts to the FCDO budget are going to have a tremendous impact, a seriously deleterious impact on women around the world because of the leading role of the United Kingdom, which we have had for so long in international health in particular. The FCDO cuts swinging as they were, not only jeopardised particular programmes and services, availability of medical interventions and drugs and treatment, but they also did something much more serious but less commentated upon. They jeopardised the 40 years of research that has gone into work on infectious diseases such as HIV, which has had such an important transformational role in medicine, not just related to HIV. Much of the response from COVID came about as quickly as it did because of the science and learning that has gone into those other pandemics. And therefore, I would say to the Noble Baroness, she did an admirable job of talking up the government's record. But unless and until we restore not only the budget, but the planning and the strategy that went into long-term programmes in the FCDO, we will be doing serious harm to women and girls across the world. One particular piece of work that we need to do in the HIV field is about PrEP. We know the importance of PrEP, and we know the importance of PrEP, particularly domestically, and we know the importance of PrEP for men. It has had a transformational effect on transmission of the virus. What we now need to do is to replicate that work across the world and understand what we can do for women, particularly in countries where they don't have a lot of power and autonomy over their own lives, and particularly in their dealings with their partner, to make sure that they too can access that. A second area that we need to look at, both domestically and internationally, is about menopause and HIV. One of the great benefits of having had so much scientific success in the field of HIV and other things is that we now have for the first time, a cohort of older people who are living with these diseases, and we don't yet know what the interaction between long-term conditions and diseases such as HIV actually are. And that's a place in which, yet again, the UK, because of the existence of the National Health Service and our involvement in health services abroad, can play a leading role in understanding. Finally, I wish to draw attention to something which we often gloss over on international: mental health. We know that women's mental health is often, in many cases, overlooked, underreported. Why? Because women are so busy coping with everything else that they put themselves last and they put others first. But as we began to see in the select committee that looked at the recent mental health bill, there is a very much underreported incidence of women with mental health problems, and particularly women with learning difficulties and autism who are being misdiagnosed in the field of mental health. Now, that can happen in an advanced medical system such as ours. It must, across the world, be much, much more pronounced. And so I'd like to ask the Minister, when she comes to reply, when we can expect the government response to the Select Committee report, and whether in particular, following the work of Baroness Hollins over so many years to look at this particular minority group, we can look forward to some movement from the government. I welcome the appointment of Professor Leslie Regan as the government ambassador advisor on women's health. I think that she has been a tremendous champion for women for many years, and I do believe that taking a life course approach to women's health will be a significant step forward. I know that Professor Regan has a particular, as do many others in the health sector, have a particular fear, and that is about the fractured commissioning of contraception, because our contraceptive services are in such a state that we now have an alarmingly high 45% rate of unplanned pregnancies in this country. Again, we are part of international studies on the efficacy of making contraception available, because, my lords, wherever you are in the world, whichever woman you are in the world, having control of your own body and your reproductive health is absolutely fundamental to your well-being and to your prosperity. It's an area in which we have typically led since the 1960s, and I sincerely hope that we will regain our eminence in that area, because it's one area in which we can teach the rest of the world some good news for all women and all girls.
My Lord,